Welcome to Echoes of the Past, where history isn't just old, it's oddly fascinating.
From forgotten facts to bizarre backstories, we dig into the dusty corners of time so
So you
you
don't
don't
have
have to.
to. I'm Jody Lynn, your amateur historian and full-time trivia hoarder.
And I'm Ephraim, here for the facts and the fun.
So let's rewind the clock and press play on the past. But, of course, before we begin, I want to put out a serious warning. This episode contains discussion of murder, historical violence, and disturbing events. While we will approach these topics respectfully and without sensationalism, the content may not be suitable for all listeners. Discretion is strongly advised.
Not me. I'm going to be mad
Oh
disrespectful.
my god. We're going to get lawsuited, is what he's saying.
No. When you hear the term serial killer, you probably think of the FBI, criminal profiling, and notorious names from the last 100 years. But the truth is, these kinds of crimes are far older than the name. Today, we're exploring the origins of multiple murder and how they were understood before the 20th century. The earliest documented examples, the language people used before serial killer existed, and how many such killers slipped through history unnoticed. This is the history of serial killing before the modern era.
I do want to put out there, because I don't remember if I write this anywhere else, but to be a serial killer in modern times, you have to kill at least 3 people. Why it has to be 3 people, I don't know, but you have to do at least 3. I think it's 3. Pretty sure it's 3. It's either 3 or 5. Either way, that's a pretty large number of people you have to kill.
I mean, yeah, 3 people and getting away with it is not nothing to scoff at.
No, definitely not. Okay. So the idea of killing multiple people over a span of time is not new, but early records are fragmentary. Ancient civilizations often recorded violent events, but rarely analyzed them as patterns. In ancient Rome, one of the earliest documented serial-style offenders was Locusta, a professional poisoner active around 54 CE. She worked for Emperor Nero's family, providing toxins for political assassinations. Over several years, she killed multiple victims for profit and power. The Roman legal system saw her not as a distinct type of killer, but simply as a dangerous criminal. Then in ancient China, the Tang dynasty from 618 to 907 CE preserved court cases where individuals were executed for repeated murders. These records often appear in imperial legal codes, but the motive or psychological study is absent. Killers were treated as lawbreakers against the emperor's order, not as an identifiable behavioral type. Then you have medieval Europe. Here, unexplained disappearances often triggered accusations of supernatural predators, vampires, werewolves, or witches. This was partly due to limited forensic capacity, but also because such stories fit the moral and religious narratives of the time. Then, of course, you've got Middle Eastern chronicles. In Abbasid Baghdad, the 8th and 9th century, historical accounts reference criminals who murdered travelers along routes over long periods. Again, the focus was on the crimes themselves, not the behavioral pattern. In every case, the emphasis was on the act, not the sequence. The idea that these killings were a part of a repeated, unidentifiable method was centuries away. Of course, once you're done with that, we now move into the language and how it shapes how we perceive crime. And of course, before the 20th century, repeated killers were described in ways that reflected fear, superstition, or moral condemnation rather than analytical precision. In medieval Europe, fiend, monster, and beast were common. In some cases, werewolf was both literal, as in believed to transform, and metaphorical, meaning they acted like a beast. I wonder how many of our folklore stories come from that.
Like people disappearing and then just blaming it on the supernatural. Probably a lot.
Then you have the 16th and 17th century Germany. The word I'm not even going to try that. You want to try it?
I feel like I'm going to butcher it, but I'll try. Syrian mortar.
Okay.
That'd be my guess.
Occasionally appeared in pamphlets and ballads, but without a standardized definition. 19th century France, assassin in série appeared in some crime reporting, but still lacked the behavioral or psychological meaning of today. Then in Victorian England, killers suspected of sexual motives were often called lust murderers, a term used in court and police records to indicate crimes involving sexual violence, though this could also include single incidents, not just patterns. In colonial America, repeated murders were simply called murderers or cutthroats, often with an added moral label like demon or witch or wretch. The common thread is that these depictors were emotional or moralistic, not investigative. They told the listener what to feel about the killer, not how to understand their methods.
Law enforcement before the modern era was highly localized, reactive, and lacked investigative cohesion. Most towns or regions operated within their own justice systems with little or no coordination. If a killer moved even 30 miles away, they effectively entered a different investigative world. These positions were often part-time, poorly trained, and reactive rather than investigative. They patrolled streets, broke up disturbances, and arrested obvious offenders, not tracked down patterns across months or years. Trials were often quick, public, and more focused on moral guilt than evidence. Eyewitnesses, confusion, sometimes or confessions, sometimes forced, and community reputation carried more weight than physical proof. In Catholic and Protestant regions, killers were often portrayed as agents of the devil, with priests or ministers present during interrogations to extract the truth.
That's also how they thought about women, I'm just saying.
Executions were frequently public spectacles, hangings, burnings, beheadings, intended to deter others. This theatrical justice addressed individual crimes but not build a system for recognizing recurring offenders.
Now, we'll move into forensics. Of course, it was not as we know it now. It was barely in its infancy. Thank you. For most of history. Early autopsies in ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome practiced rudimentary autopsies, but these were often for medical study, not criminal investigation. Then, first documented in China around 650 CE, was fingerprint evidence, but not applied to systematic criminal identification until the late 19th century in Argentina and India. And then, of course, pathology advances. By the Renaissance, European anatomists, these are a lot of big words for Elmo, began studying wounds and causes of death, but these findings rarely linked one crime to another. There's a really good movie for that one that shows that a little bit. And it's called, I believe, The Physician's Assistant.
Mm-hmm.
It has some pretty big name actors, but basically the plague is going through and they're trying to figure out what's causing it. So this kid who's trying to become a doctor goes to try to study under the guy, and they end up taking apart bodies to figure out what's causing the plague. And I also think they hint on this in it's not Sweeney Todd. Is it Sweeney Todd? I don't think it's Sweeney Todd.
Which one?
Maybe it's the Headless Horseman. Anyways, it's one of the ones that Johnny Depp is in for the guy that makes Wednesday and all of the fucking Johnny Depp movies. Is it Sweeney Todd?
I think it's Sweeney Todd.
Okay.
Yeah, Tim Burton.
Yeah, all of the Tim Burton movies. But I think it's Sweeney Todd, where he goes into the town to figure out what's going on, and they're taking apart bodies, and they think he's like this madman for doing it. Toxicology. In 1836, James Marsh developed the Marsh test for arsenic detection, revolutionizing the ability to prove poisoning, but before that, poisoners were often killed undetected. Ballistics, early firearms existed for centuries, but ballistic comparison for crime solving wasn't developed until the late 19th century. Without interconnecting records or the concept of behavioral patterns, even sophisticated forensic methods couldn't expose a serial killer operating across multiple areas.
Because there was no concept of serial killers, many offenders escaped detection entirely, or their crimes were reinterpreted through other lenses. Gilles de Rais, France from the 15th century. Modern historians suspect he murdered dozens, possibly hundreds of children.
Jesus.
But his trial focused on on witchcraft as on the killings themselves.
Of course.
Unnamed prisoners in Victorian England, domestic servants or family members sometimes poisoned multiple people over years for inheritance or convenience. Many were never caught because symptoms resembled cholera or typhoid. Traveling murderers. In the Ottoman Empire, certain bandit groups targeted caravans for decades. Their killings were recorded as robbery-related, not serial offenses. Plague and war confusion. During outbreaks or wartime, explained deaths could be buried in the chaos, leaving killers free to continue.
It's not a bad idea. I'm just saying.
The lack of centralized records meant that even some suspected a pattern, proving it was almost impossible.
Your child.
I will figure out what he's doing.
By the late 19th century, key changes laid the groundwork for modern serial killer identification. Sorry, I'm not laughing at what we're talking about. One of the cats is going crazy behind us. Centralized police forces, of course, Metropolitan Police in London in 1829 and similar organizations in Europe created the very first standing investigative bodies. Then we move on to communication technology with telegraphs allowing faster sharing of information between towns and countries. Then newspapers began reporting sensational crimes in more detail, sometimes linking murders across cities for the first time. A really good representation for that one is the Boston Stranglers. The newspaper was connecting the dots much faster than the police force was. Then you move on to criminal psychology in the late 1800s. Early criminal anthropologists like Cesar Lombroso studied behavioral tendencies even if their conclusions were often flawed. And then record keeping. Fingerprint registries, photo archives, the Bertillon system, and written case files gave investigators a foundation for pattern recognition. Even with these advances, the term serial killer would not appear until the mid 20th century. But the pieces were finally in place.
In history, solving a case often came down to focus, noticing the details others miss. Today, you may not be chasing a killer, but staying sharp still matters. That's why we recommend Dubby Energy. Dubby is a clean energy drink designed to boost focus and clarity without the crash of traditional energy drinks. Right now, we're loving the Japanese yuzu flavor, a crisp citrus blend that's as unique as it is refreshing. Visit dubby.gg and use code Echoes of the Past for 10% off your order. That's dubby.gg, code Echoes of the Past. Stay focused, stay sharp.
And of course, the way society talks about killers is shaped not just by the justice system, but by the stories we tell. Once mass media became widespread, public fascination with repeat killers exploded, often shaping the myths more than the facts. So, from the 18th to 19th century, with early print and penny dreadfuls, you have the broadsheet era. In the 1700s, crime broadsheets and chapbooks in England and Europe reported real murders in lurid, sensational detail. These pamphlets sold well because they were cheap and thrilling, often with woodcut illustrations showing the killer in dramatic poses. Then you have penny dreadfuls. By the mid 1800s, serialized fictional crime stories like Sweeney Todd blurred the line between true and invented killers. Though fictional, Sweeney Todd was marketed like a real case, cementing the idea of a legendary murderer in public imagination. Then you've got true crime novels. Authors like Thomas Dickinson, on Murder Considered as One of the Fine Arts in 1827, explored murder not just as a crime, but as a cultural fascination, a shift toward analyzing the killer's personality.
And then you have the newspaper age from the late 19th century. Jack the Ripper's Press Storm, 1888. The Ripper case marked one of the first times newspapers across the world covered a serial killer in near real time. Illustrated Police News ran graphic sketches of crime scenes, helping cement the killer as a cultural figure as much as a criminal. American sensationalism. In the U.S., papers like the New York World and New York Journal competed for readership, with gory headlines about H.H. Holmes and other turn-of-the-century killers. The creation of the mastermind villain trope. Even when details were unknown, papers describe killers as cunning masterminds, shaping a stereotype that persists in fiction today.
Then we move on to radio and early broadcast media from 1920s to 1940s. You start off with true crime radio shows. Programs like Gangbusters and Crime Classics dramatized police chases and famous murders, often mixing real cases with fictional embellishments. War era mortality had the serial killers in radio scripts were typically portrayed as morally deprived villains who met swift justice, fitting the era's preference for clear moral endings. Then you have the real case influence. The Cleveland torso murderer from the 1930s and similar cases inspired fictionalized radio stories that stuck in the public mind even after the real cases went cold.
Hollywood's golden age from the 30s to the 50s. Early horror crossovers films like 1931 by Fritz Lang explored a serial killer psychology decades before criminal profiling existed. It was groundbreaking for showing both the killer's perspective and the societal hunt for him. The censorship era. The Hollywood Production Code from 1934 to 1968 limited how much violence and gore could be shown, so killers were often implied rather than depicted directly. Based on a true story, lightly. Movies loosely inspired by Ed Gein's crimes, like Psycho.
That's a good movie.
In 1960, just after the code began to loosen, shifted horror into psychological terror.
Then we move on to television's influence in the 50s through the 80s. Early TV crime dramas, shows like Dragnet, portrayed serial-style killers but kept them within a police procedural framework. The focus was on law enforcement competence rather than killer psychology. I do want to add real quick, there's a reason that they were doing this, and they should probably still keep doing it, and they do, but not as heavily, is the fact that there were a ton of police forces that were not exactly doing their jobs. Let's just put it that way. So in the public's eye, a lot of different law enforcement agencies were looked down on. They were mad, talked shit about. A lot of different agencies were coming onto the knife pretty much because they were failing to do their jobs. They were failing to catch murderers. They were basically failing to do a lot of stuff. So a lot of these types of crime dramas where it went into the police procedural side, we're trying to get people back on their side. Then you have the 1970s shift with the real-world rise of notorious killers like Bundy, Son of Sam, and the Zodiac. TV began to incorporate darker storylines. And then, of course, making for the movies, the 1980s produced dramatizations of real killers. The Deliberate Stranger about Bundy cemented the true crime dramatization format.
The modern film era, from the 90s to the present. Silence of the Lambs in 1991 brought the brilliant but monstrous serial killer archetype to mainstream audiences and heavily influenced the crime thriller genre.
Will always be one of my favorite movies.
Procedural TV boom. Shows like Criminal Minds and Mindhunter popularized behavioral profiling, often blending real cases details with fictionalized drama. Streaming documentaries. Modern platforms like Netflix provide interest in real-life cases with documentaries like Making a Murder and the confession tapes, giving unprecedented global access to in-depth crime stories. Ethical conversations. Current discussions question whether constant exposure to serial killer content risks glamorizing or humanizing them in harmful ways.
So, what movies do you know and do you like? He's eating random stuff, of course. That go over different, like, they don't have to be like real serial killer cases, but things of that nature that are crime or thriller crime, would you say? Like I've already said, Silence of the Lambs has always been and will always be one of my favorite movies. Then, of course, The Boston Strangler that came out in 2023 with Keira Knightley, and, of course, The Sixth Sense. Everybody knows that one. But
I've never seen it.
But you know of it.
I heard the title, have no clue what it's about.
Really? Okay. Mm-hmm. Gonna have to add that to our list of things I need to make you watch.
Well, there's Friday the 13th, but I don't know if you... I mean, yeah, I guess he's a serial killer because he kills lots of people throughout the movies.
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
Just like Scream.
Yeah. But Jason's is more of a paranormal kind of entity than he is... I mean, yeah, he starts out as a man, but then he died and just come back so many times. He's more monster than he is human.
Yeah.
There's the Halloween series, the ones with Michael Myers at least. I mean, he kills a shit ton of people in those movies too, trying to get his sister.
That sibling love, I guess.
Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger killing all them teenagers. They killed a lot of teenagers in the 80s.
They were like, oh, fuck these kids.
Fuck them kids. My favorite Freddy quote is from I forgot which movie it is, but he kills one of the characters by slamming him into a TV and going, "It's prime time, bitch." It's pretty funny.
What about moving away from
Fictional.
Those. Yes. Do you know any that you can think of off the top of your head that you liked?
Not really, I guess. Just because, like, we were watching that show about Jeffrey Dahmer.
And that got boring really quickly.
Yeah.
Which is sad to say.
I mean, it's just him growing up and then, like, switching back and forth between then and when he was growing up and during the...
And then the time he was murdering people.
Time he was murdering people, then the time after he's murdering. But I think the thing with, like, real serial killers is a lot of the time their motives are just uninteresting, or they're, like, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, they had an abusive childhood and they were this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 and that's why they killed people. Like, it's just kind of, it's just boring, I guess.
Here's my question. Do you think that serial killers are born that way, or do you think they are made that way?
Made that way.
You think they're made that way?
I think some of them are born, I guess, born wrong.
Born wrong, okay.
I don't know how else to put it.
No, I get it.
Like, but like others, like I said, getting abused physically, sexually, all that
Smacking their head really hard somewhere.
Something just being rewired differently.
Okay.
Compared to your average Joe Schmo.
I get
depends.
It. So in the crime circuit, whether it's behavioral or psychological or whatever, that is a huge argument and debate among a lot of different people on whether serial killers are born that way or if they're made that way. So some of these I really wish they had kept some of the brains of, I know that sounds really weird, but I wish they had kept some of the brains or like the skulls or whatever of serial killers that have died in the past.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that there have been quite a few where like they were younger and hit their head in a certain way when they were little, and after that everybody says, oh, they weren't the same anymore. Or, like you said, they were abused, they were sexually assaulted, they were all of these things, and all of a sudden they grew up that way. But there's also a ton of people who had the same things that didn't do these things. So, does that mean that they were already like that before that happened? Or did they just get the bad luck of the draw? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it probably comes down to how their brain functions.
Okay.
Because obviously not everyone's brain works the same.
Obviously, some people can see things in their head and other people have no narration, and I think that's really weird.
Yeah.
Kudos on you guys. I bet it's really quiet in there, but like us people who have narration, it's loud all the fucking time.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
We were talking about made or born that way.
Yeah. Oh, or like another thing, like just being desensitized to these kinds of things, to like the violence against other human beings. Like if you get a parent who just plops their kid down in front of the TV and lets them watch just like whatever, they're going to be like desensitized to the violence.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the gore and all the other bad things. And in their mind, they're like, and after a while, in their mind, they're like, well, maybe I could do that.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, influenced by their environment. Like they don't have to be, like you said, abused physically, sexually, all that other jazz. It could also just be the content they can consume.
That's fair. So moving from that, we were kind of talking about this while we were shopping earlier. Serial killers, like I said, are classified after they killed a certain amount of people, right? So in that sense, genocide.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the Holocaust. Would you say that he was a serial killer? Or would you classify him as something else? Because he did kill a lot of people. But he technically was not the one who did it. Does that make sense?
Yes. I wouldn't say he was, like, Hitler was a murderer. He ordered people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This cat, I swear to God. Because it's like, he didn't physically go down to these camps and shoot them.
No, yeah.
Or like when he put them in, when they were herded into the gas chambers, they got killed by gas. Yeah, it was guys turning the valves or however those systems worked.
Pull the lever, Chrome. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
We're going to be respectful.
I'm Sorry. I didn't think about that before I said it, but it was.
People will call him, a mass murderer because he ordered the deaths of supposedly 6 million Jews.
It's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people.
Okay, so moving from that one, I'm trying to think of any other genocides that I can think of off the top of my head.
There's a lot of different genocides.
Oh, I know.
But obviously the Holocaust is the most notable one because they don't shut up about it.
I mean, it's a good thing to talk about. I think the people who think it didn't happen are ridiculously stupid because there's no way you honestly think that didn't happen. Yeah. There's no way. So genocide. If you are the one who's doing it, not like Hitler where he's telling people to do it, but if you are the one doing it,
yeah, you gotta kill a lot of people for it to be considered a genocide.
Hold on, I gotta look.
And genocide's like the definition I think not by definition on what I think it is.
I'm not spelling
it's
this
like
right.
The killing of a certain particular nation or ethnic group. So the Holocaust, that's a genocide. There's the Rwandan genocide. What other ones can I think of? The ones China's doing right now, I don't remember the group of people. They're Muslims in China, and China's running them up in camps and throwing them into camps.
Oof.
Who else? What else? Obviously, any country that's communist,
yeah,
with their stupid ass laws, communism doesn't work. With their
don't tell them that. They don't like that.
With their laws, like the Soviet Union, or whenever China became communist and Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward, where he literally took China back a few years and a lot of people died from starvation. Or there was a Pol Pot who killed a lot of people in Cambodia. That was a genocide. The
Khmer Rouge.
Khmer Rouge.
Yeah.
I listened to a video about this the other day, so that's why I thought about it. I said the Rwandan genocide.
The Cambodian. The Armenian one. The Ottoman government killed an estimated 664,000 to 1.2 million. That's a big jump there, guys.
Yeah.
That was in 1915 to 1916. And, of course, the Holocaust. Current situations and ongoing concerns is in
Myanmar.
They're
having
Sudan,
a war in there.
Yeah. Ethiopia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, but they've been going through that shit.
There's a lot of just violence in Africa.
Yeah. But would you... Obviously, it's murder, but you would classify it not as serial killer murders.
No.
Unless it was one specific person doing it.
Yeah, I think serial killers is just one person.
One specific person or a team of people, like a wife and husband doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a difference between serial killers and then just mass genocide.
Okay. So I wanted to put this in here. Estimates from the 1900 to 1987, roughly 39 million people died in genocides worldwide. That's
a lot of people.
That's a fuck ton of people. Okay, so moving from genocides, let's look at mass murders, which are somewhere in the middle between serial killers and genocides. Like, for instance, there was one where it was one guy who did what is the book called where you write all your mad thinkings down and it's your one book?
Oh, the manifesto?
Yes, he had a manifesto. I think that is so silly. He had a manifesto that detailed, very, very detailed, everything that he was going to do. He did all of these extravagant things. I think he had cassette tapes that he sent out of recordings of what he was talking about, all these things. Like, he planned this out heavily. And it was in Norway or Finland. Norway. It was over there. And over there.
Yeah.
Where everybody's peaceful. So basically what had happened was he was, I think, really mad at the government, if I remember correctly. I haven't listened to this in a few months now, so pardon me if I get some of this wrong, but I'm trying to remember. Basically, he was very mad about something in the government or his life or something, and he decided that he was going to do these things, and he learned about it on the internet or in library books, and decided that he was going to do this, did a whole manifesto, packed a bag full of all of these weapons that he had gotten a hold of, and he went to a island, rowed out to a little island on a little boat, and that was full of like a summer camp type thing
Mm-hmm.
for all these kids. Like hundreds of kids were out there. And most of these kids were children of the government. So, like senators, basically. Their kids were there. The mayor's kids were there. I know that's not what they call them, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Government officials' kids were at this island. A lot of them. Like, I'd say, like, probably 90% of the kids there were from the government's personnel, okay? So he decided he was going to hit this. Nobody knew what was happening. Nobody expected this, of course. Nobody knew anything was happening. He was able to kill so many people. And because this dude looked like a nice, either Norwegian or Finnish man, like he looked perfect, apparently. He was model gorgeous, essentially. Like he had the look. So everybody just trusted him. What he would do is he would round up kids, make them feel safe and like he was saving them, and then mow them down with his guns. And he got so many before he finally got caught. Things like that. Okay. Would you consider that a serial killing? Because he did shoot more than one person. And this took hours. Like, this was not days. This was hours that he did this. Or would you call that a mass murder?
I'd say it's a mass murder.
Okay. What do you think moves it from a serial killing to a mass murder? Because there have been some serial killers that have upwards of 20-something people that they've killed.
Okay, so like with mass murders, it all happens within a time frame, a specific time frame from the moment it starts to the moment it ends.
Okay.
Serial killers, they do it within like a span of, hours or days or however
it's a longer,
long they can get away with it. So like,
I remember one guy took like he did it for 10 years and then stopped and then waited 10 or 15 years and then just started again.
Yeah, so like an example, some guy rounds up 50 people and kills them all and they all just die in a ditch or whatever. And then after that, he gets arrested or killed himself. I'd say that's a mass murder. But if let's take the same guy and he kills, 2 people in one day, then the next day, one person, then so on and so forth, I'd say that's serial killer.
Okay, I get that. So you're saying with those two, it more depends on how, like the length of time.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. So here's another one. This one is labeled as a serial killing. Mm-hmm. I think it's mass murder. It's not that many kids, or it wouldn't have been. So this one's weird. You've probably heard of it. I heard of it before I ever listened to it on the podcast that I listened to, and terrifies the shit out of me. Okay, I'm not claustrophobic. We figured this out, but for some reason, getting buried alive is one of those things that terrifies me. Right? Okay, I think it terrifies most people in some modicum of degree. So these guys kidnapped a bus full of children and the driver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, put them in the back of a U-Haul, drove the U-Haul and the bus to a spot, put all of the kids. I think they knocked them out or something, and dug a hole, put the bus in the hole, put the kids in the bus, or some kind of however they did that, and then buried them all. Okay? They were supposed to have been dead. They were expected to be dead. These guys did not do this for ransom. They did not do them for any other thing, just to do it. Okay? Yeah. I think all 3 of these guys were rich. So they were doing it just to get their rocks off, essentially.
As rich people do.
As rich people do, yes. Excuse me. If one of the kids, I think, was able to get into the emergency exit and dig up, and he was able to get them free. But if they hadn't, would you consider that a serial killing? I know it goes into the same thing with the time frame.
I still think it'd be
or mass murder. Mass murder?
Mass murder.
Okay, because I believe they were labeled as a serial killing because they were going to do that and they had planned to do more. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because when they confessed, they had said that they had been planning that and that they had planned to do it again. So I think they were labeled as potential serial killers.
Well, if it's potential, then they're not serial killers because they didn't get away with serial killing.
Yeah. I think it was like 12 or 15 kids and 1 adult.
Yeah, so it fall more into attempted mass murder.
That's fair. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. I wanted to talk to you about that because a lot of people have very different ideas of like the differences between the three. I don't think there's really anything else besides serial killing, mass murders, and genocide. I think that's the kind of like the degrees that they kind of go in my opinion. Do you think there's anything else to add to those three?
Um,
I got one more question after this.
well then, I mean, just like random murders, I guess. But like I said, this is more serial killers.
Yeah.
So like just gangbangers killing each other on the street doesn't really warrant
You
calling
would
them
think
as
it
serial
would.
killers.
If
'Cause-
like the same person keeps doing it, you would think that would, but they never label them that way.
yeah, like what was that rapper's? Uh,
Biggie.
no, not Biggie. King Von or some shit like that.
Okay.
People called him a serial killer because supposedly he killed quite a few people,
Mm-hmm.
but they could never, if I remember correctly, really prove it was him
Okay.
because he'd do it by telling other people to do it. So would that make him a serial killer? I mean, yeah, he actually, as far as we know, he also killed some people himself. But when you're also getting other people to do it for you, are you still a serial killer? Or are you?
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I was. Okay, so now I have two topics. So with gang banging, I hate that term because it sounds so funny. But with like gang related killings,
Yeah.
do you think those should still technically fall under serial killing and mass murders? Because they never label them that way unless it's something like the Twin Peaks murder in Waco. Like I've told you about that one, right? Where it was it was started as a bar fight and then became a mass murder basically because the bikers were fighting.
Yeah.
And they kept killing people. Okay. So they just called it a gang fight. Don't you think that those should technically still fall under the mass murders or the serial killers if they are, like you said, like being told to hey, go knock out Joe Blow down the street. Hey, 2 weeks later, go kill this dude. Why would they not still be called that? I don't get it.
Because I think with some serial killers, like Jeffrey Dahmer, it was just random dudes he was picking up off the street.
Yeah.
And but when it comes to gang activity, like it's targeted killings compared to like the randomness of like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or the Zodiac killer.
Which I think is interesting. They finally broke his code. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was Ted Cruz.
Everybody says that. He does look quite similar. It's very alarming.
I don't know if he was like barely alive at that point.
I know, but it's alarming. But yeah, they finally, I think it was this year or last year that they said they had finally broken the code and they were deciphering it, but they never said what the decipher was.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question that I was going to ask. You and I went to the Waco site.
Yeah, Waco siege.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to the government killing people, whether it's targeted or by accident, like some of that was, well, not accident, but you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider
it's a mass murder?
Mass murder, okay.
Yeah.
If the same agent is going out and always getting put on these tasks, would he become a serial killer even if no justice is served because he's technically the justice?
Sure. I'd say so. I think by definition he'd be a serial killer, but if it's his job to be doing these things and nothing happens, then it's just murder because the government says so.
See, I feel like there's a lot of gray area.
It is a lot of gray area. Because like we said, if it's just fucking Joe Schmo on the street killing people over like the span of a month, then that's a serial killer. But if he's killing like 30 people in quick succession, then that's mass murder. Of course, with the Waco siege, it really comes down to people's personal opinions and such. Some people, it's like, oh, it's just the government dealing with a cult. Other people, it's the government. It's government overreach.
Yeah.
And trying to tell people how to live their existence. So it just
personally,
it just depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I kind of fall in the middle of that, where I see the reason that they did it, but they could have handled it a whole different way, in my opinion.
Oh, they could have.
But they decided to go hardball.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with
Well,
that.
the reason why they veering way off topic for the moment. Well, the reason why there was rumors that what's his nuts was I forgot his name was doing bad things to the kids and the women, but the reason why the ATF and the government did the whole thing was because supposedly they were making illegal weapons out of their compound, even though they had permits and everything. Just touch his belly. Talking about the cat.
Now he doesn't want to be talkative.
Of course you don't.
See, that's where I'm kind of iffy is when it comes to the government and some of the stuff that they pull. I feel like there is some stuff that they highly overreach with when it comes to people getting killed by them. And not just our government, any government.
Yeah.
I think that their reach goes way too far and that they should not get away with killing people. Like, if I understand that when the need rises, I get it. But things like that one kind of make me go,
Yeah.
Okay. So, moving on from that, now that we've gotten all the topics out of the way, let's look at some myths versus reality. But before I do that, I did want to put in a little bit more knowledge in your ear. So, the first documented use of the term serial killer is attributed to Ernst Ginnet, a German police official who used the term Serienmörder in the 1930s. This term was used in reference to the investigation of Peter Kürten, a German serial killer, while the English translation to that is serial killer is credited to Robert Resler, an FBI agent who popularized the term in the 1970s. So, it wasn't until decades later that the term was translated into English, and that's when it became popular. Of course, Resler, while not the first to use the term, is recognized for popularizing it through his work. The term serial killer did gain further traction in 1981 when it was used in a New York Times article about Wayne Williams, who was implicated in the Atlanta child murders.
The cat's going under the chair.
Yay. The difference between mass murder and serial killer, by the way, since we kind of talked about it, if I can spell correctly, is that a mass murderer, the difference between a mass murderer, a serial killer, and a spree killer lies in the number of victims and the time between the killings, like you had said. A mass murderer kills 3 or more people at one location and in one incident. A serial killer murders 3 or more people over a period of time with cooling off periods between the killings. And a spree killer kills 2 or more people in 2 or more locations with no significant cooling off period between the murders. The definitions are for mass murder, killing 3 or more people at one location in a single event. Examples: a gunman opening fire in a movie theater, killing multiple people, like, what was it, the Batman movie?
Yeah, the one in Aurora, Colorado.
Yes. Serial killers is killing 3 or more, so I had that one right, but with cooling off periods. A person who strangles several women over a period of months with time in between to plan and recover. Multiple events, multiple locations, cooling off periods. I feel like I'm talking about phasmophobia here. Then, of course, you have the spree murder, killing 2 or more people in 2 or more locations with no significant cooling off period between the murders. A good example is a person shooting at people in a shopping mall, then driving to another location and continuing the attacks. Of course, multiple locations, no cooling off period. In essence, the cooling off period is the crucial factor distinguishing serial murders from mass and spree murder. The FBI considers the number of victims and the presence or absence of a cooling off period to categorize these types of crime. So, moving into the myths versus reality. Myth number 1, serial killers are all genius masterminds who outwit the police for years. The reality is that most are of average intelligence, and many make sloppy mistakes. The criminal mastermind image largely comes from media like Hannibal Lecter and Seven. In reality, many are caught because they can't resist revisiting crime scenes, contacting police, or leaving evidence.
Myth number 2, they all have a type, same victim look, same method. Reality, while some have specific victim profiles, many are opportunistic. Early cases were often misunderstood because investigators looked for identical victim patterns, missing cases that didn't fit.
Myth number 3, serial killers are loners
Guys,
who
piss
live in
off.
creepy houses.
Go away. Go away.
Reality, many are socially functional, some even respected in their communities. John Wayne Gacy was a popular local figure. BTK worked as a compliance officer and church leader. This ability to blend in is part of what makes them dangerous. I do want to add here, did you ever watch anything on Bundy?
No.
I think it was Bundy. Anyways, this serial killer, again, it might be Bundy, it might not be. I've got a lot of serial killers in my head. But basically, he was well liked by women. He was very charming, very good looking.
Yeah, it was Bundy.
Okay. In one of his court videos, this man goes from his charming attitude, perfect face, perfect facade, in an instant because of something that somebody says, whether it was the prosecutor or the judge or a person on the stand. Like, I've seen the video. This is terrifying. This man goes from that, like, perfect facade to absolutely evil and terroristic, like, expression. And you can see the change in his eyes back to that facade in less than 5 seconds flat.
Mm-hmm.
And that shit is terrifying that they could do that. I need to learn, but that's terrifying. Maybe, I don't know. Fucking safety tactic. I don't know.
Myth 4, they kill constantly, one victim right after another. Reality, by definition, serial killers have cooling off periods, sometimes weeks, months, and even years between murders. This pause is the only reason they've been historically been so hard to link.
There was one guy, and one of the more fascinating, I don't remember what his name was, but he went so long because what he would do, and this is what I find really fascinating, he would make murder kits. And what he would do is he would travel by rental car and by plane, and I think it was always rental cars and planes. And he would travel somewhere, leave that kit somewhere in that area, and then come back and choose his victim months to years later. And he kept doing that. The only reason he fucked up was he brought someone home that he had murdered and hid them in his shed. And he did this for years. Like, some of his kits are still out there because he didn't get them all before he got caught. That is insane work right there.
Yeah.
So, myth number 5, they're mostly American. No. The U.S. coined the term serial killer, but the phenomenon is global and ancient. Japan's
Tsutomu Miyazaki.
Colombia's Pedro Lopez and Russia's Andrea Chikatilo are just a few examples from the modern era.
I think the reason why we don't here in the States know a lot about serial killers from other countries is just because they're not covered like they're covered here.
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely not.
Obviously, like Ted Bundy,
BTK.
all the popular ones, all the infamous ones, have heard, seen, read about, watched videos about 1,000 fucking times.
Manson.
But like the ones like over in Japan and Europe, and you don't really hear about it because the media there doesn't I wouldn't say sensationalize them, but they're not as covered in the news as much as ours here.
I have to say, thinking of a serial killer in Japan, it just doesn't make sense to me for some reason. Because they're so cutesy, I guess, is like their main frontage.
But their whole, the way they live in Japan, it's about the society, not the individual.
Yeah.
So if you don't contribute, or like if you don't contribute to society, then you're an outcast. You're outcasted by everyone, ostracized. But like everyone wants to fit in and not be seen as different over there in Japan.
Yeah.
Especially in a negative light like that.
That's fair.
I feel like it'd be really easy to get away with murder in Russia, because if you leave,
there's nothing there.
Exactly. Like everything everything on like the
Asia side,
western half of the continent towards Europe, like Moscow, and all the other cities, it's easier or it's harder because, densely populated.
Yeah.
Once you start getting out to the wilderness, like
There ain't shit there.
there ain't shit there. You could kill a bunch of people before someone starts to notice.
Mm.
And then, like I said, with Europe, they just don't cover it as well as we do. And then Africa, not every country there is violence and just people being crazy, but some other countries, it's like every day for them.
Yeah, like the Tutsi and the the Tutsi and the Hutsi?
The Houthis.
Yeah, that one was terrifying. I watched that movie in class, and we had to study it for like months. And I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, so I mean, the U.S. has just a lot more well-known ones because we put all our business out there for everyone to see.
We're like, haha, we're America. Look at the shit.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Okay. Myth number 6. They're driven by one motive, usually sexual. Reality motives vary: financial gain, thrill-seeking, revenge, ideology, or compulsion. Earlier historical cases often went misclassified because sexual motives were assumed and when they weren't present at all.
Myth number 7. Catching them always involves profiling and psychological insight. Note, while profiling can help, many captures come down to witness tips, dumb mistakes, or forensic breakthroughs, not dramatic profile or showdowns like in Criminal Minds. I wish it was. That'd be cool. Be some badass shit right there.
I guess.
So, from whispered legends to global streaming documentaries, the media has always shaped how we see and remember serial killers. Sometimes these betrayals help bring cases to light, and other times they distort reality into myth. Next week, we'll move from history and perception into the cases themselves, dissecting the facts behind the headlines.
Well, not next week, Wednesday.
Well, yeah. Technically, depending on what calendar you look at, whether your week starts on Sunday or Monday, it is technically next week.
Okay, but if we're looking at a regular standard Gregorian time calendar, it's Wednesday.
I guess. Okay, so thank you guys for listening and being here with us. Hope you didn't miss us too much last week. If you have anything that you would like to share, your stories, your ideas for future episodes, or sponsorship opportunities, or just a little joke here or there, I don't know, anything you want to send us, it's echoesofthepast.pod, P-O-D, @gmail.com. Do you have anything you would like to add before we close out?
No, my mom will like this episode. And probably Wednesday. She really likes.
I thought she didn't listen to podcasts.
I thought she listens to ours. I thought she said she did.
I don't know. I don't pay attention.
My mom likes.
I don't keep up.
My mom likes watching shows about murders and all that shit.
Me too. I've learned not to watch them before bed because then they show up in my dreams, and I don't like that. I don't like unknown people showing up in my dreams.
All right, thanks for wandering through history with us on Echoes of the Past.
If you liked what you heard, subscribe, rate us, and tell that one friend who still quotes fun facts at parties.
And remember, history may repeat itself.
But we promise not to.
See you in the next Echo.